Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank our witnesses for your commitment to this important issue, and I want to thank the representatives of the Syrian White Helmets for being here today. Your dedication and your personal sacrifices deserve our respect and our admiration and our thanks. National security experts from both Democrat and Republican administrations have recognized the strategic benefits to the United States of robust refugee resettlement. Unfortunately, as other senators have mentioned, the Trump administration is dismantling the U.S. refugee admissions program. Last year, President Trump cut our refugee admissions ceiling to a record low 30,000 people, less than a third of the historical average of 95,000 admissions to the United States. And now, almost halfway through the year, only 12,000 refugees have been welcomed into the United States, including fewer than 300 Syrians. Mr. Miliband, I could not agree more with your statement that the world's greatest superpower should not reject the world's most vulnerable in our greatest time of need. 3 weeks ago, I introduced the GRACE Act, which would prevent this administration from continuing its efforts to slash refugee admissions. This bill would prevent any U.S. president from settling in the annual refugee admissions level below 95,000 each year. We already have 12 senators who have co-sponsored it, and we're going to continue to build momentum on that. Mr. Stiller, Mr. Miliband has spoken eloquently on the need for American leadership. Can you give us your statement as to why you believe it's the role of the United States to play this role?
Yes, probably less eloquently, but I'll try. I mean, I was speaking about this a little bit earlier, but I feel the U.S. has always been a beacon for welcoming refugees. We're a country of refugees. And I think, as you were pointing out, as the U.S. goes, so goes the world. And so this is a global issue, too. But the reality is that refugees are additive to our communities, to our economy. They literally contribute billions of dollars in tax money and revenue to the economy. I think it's there's a statistic: 40% of all Fortune 500 companies were either started by a refugee or immigrant or their children. I mean, it's just part of the fabric of American life, and it's distressing to me to see the numbers go down as they have, because we have to lead the world in this. And the reality is that it's only these people are only the most vulnerable who are being admitted, and it's 0.4% of all refugees in the world. So I think it's very important for the U.S. to lead on this, and we have the ability to, and it's been proven to actually help our country.
Thank you. Mr. Miliband, you've been the leader on this and on climate change. When I was made the chair in 2007 of the Select Committee on Climate Change over in the House, my first witness in my first hearing was General Gordon Sullivan, 4-star general, commander of the Army. And he testified that when he looked back at the decision which he had made in Somalia, which was in Mogadishu, which came to be known as Black Hawk Down, and he sent in our personnel, that he didn't fully understand why we were there. And now, testifying before my committee, on behalf of 12 other 4-star generals and admirals, he wanted to say that he now realizes, in retrospect, that it was a drought caused by climate change that had brought factions closer and closer together, fighting over limited resources, and that then the United States had to go in order to try to separate them or to provide aid to those who had been affected. Could you talk about that? Talk about Syria, too, and the effects of climate change, and how you see that playing out, not just in Syria, but in other parts of the world, and what the responsibility of the United States has to lead on climate change as well.
Thanks very much. I think that the best way to understand this is that climate change increases resource stress, and resource stress is a conflict multiplier. There's a legitimate and credible line of argument that the drought in the northwest of Syria in 2008 to 11, which drove hundreds of thousands of people into the cities, was a contributor to the revolt. Although I always remind people that in 2005, the Damascus Declaration sowed the seeds of the demand for accountable government before that drought, so it's a multifactorial. But we know from our work around the world, the Lake Chad Basin being an obvious example, where you've got northeast Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon, Niger. Climate change is happening. It is causing resource stress. Resource stress does drive conflict. And when it's combined with corruption, misgovernance, poverty, religious and ethnic difference, you've got a tinderbox. And the truth is that we're going to be living with this for many decades to come. And the danger is that we neither mitigate nor adapt ourselves to that situation.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for your leadership on this.